Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Leafs Line Podcast. We are tuning into Czechia today. Always an exciting team to watch and see what they can do in each and every tournament. Off the top, I'll start it off. I'm Mara Russo. Joining me is Jared Rotenberg and Adamo Romoli. If you've been tuning in for this long, you've kind of seen that we've gotten to a lot of teams, a lot of up-and-coming teams. A lot of teams are on the decline, and of course, some powerhouses are on the way as well. So thank you guys for tuning in. It's going to be a fun episode. I can guarantee it. And it's been fun doing all these ones, man. Looking into these other teams, these hockey programs, these cultures. It's so fun to mix and match, and we're just having a blast doing it. But yeah, thanks for being here. Let's get into Czechia. Just missed out on the podium this past summer. They fall to Sweden in the bronze medal game 3-1. This is the second time in the last 5 years that they have failed to register a win in a medal game. The thing about this team, however, Jared, and I know you were hinting to it a lot before we jumped on here, they're loaded with NHL prospects, including Canadians prospect John Mysak. I believe I'm saying his name right, or Mysak, one of the two. I know I'm going to be butchering a lot of teams. I think I looked it up on the roster, and unless Elite Hockey or whatever is completely wrong, but regardless, there's still tons of NHL prospects there. Yeah. And that's the one thing that I like to focus on with these guys, because we've been checking out a lot of teams where the talent is far from it, and there's not a lot of international, rather NHL guys in there, guys who have proven and been drafted and have been scouted from major teams in hockey. This team's not like that. They got their own guys. They got their guys that have played at the national hockey level. It's a good combination. So, Jared, do you think this combination is going to help them out in the long run? And can you take me a little bit into a deeper dive on some of these loaded NHL prospects that I claim them as?
Yeah, so for starters, this is a very interesting team in this tournament. Of course, they're playing in that Group A alongside Canada and Sweden. But beyond them, I definitely staple Czechia in as that third best team in that Group A. And that's because of those NHL prospects that you've mentioned. They have a lot of talent all throughout their lineup. Not necessarily the deepest team in the world, but again, with their fair share of stars, they're a team that definitely could upset the top teams and have themselves a great performance at this tournament. One interesting note about them, I don't actually have the goaltenders' names on hand, but an interesting thing I noted when I was reading up on the Czechia roster is the fact that going into the tournament, they don't have one guy penciled in right now as their number one goalie. They kind of just have three capable goaltenders that they're going to decide, depending on how the tournament goes, they're going to ride the hot hand and decide which goalie kind of on the fly they're going to roll with. So I think that's something interesting, that they kind of have three goalies ready to go, not one starter and a couple totally worse guys beyond them. They have some three guys that could very well take the net and roll with it. So I think that's something very interesting. And as well, let's just get into the prospects, because that's the main interesting thing about this Czechia team. For starters, the main guy you need to know is David Jiricek. He was the 6th overall pick in the 2022 NHL draft, drafted by the Columbus Blue Jackets. And what's interesting about him is he's just completely a big body defenseman who excels on the defensive end of the ice. I remember heading into that 2022 draft, there was the debate Nemec versus Jiricek, who was going to be drafted first. And the difference between the two is that whereas Nemec was more maybe well-rounded, had some two-way potential, Jiricek was all defense all the time, big body guy, 6'3". He could shut down a game, but as well, he has some skating ability as well and could skate the puck up and down the ice. So a very interesting guy overall, and definitely someone that could make this Czechia squad a force to be reckoned with at this tournament in terms of just shutting things down. As well, though, right now with the Cleveland Monsters of the AHL, obviously that being Columbus's AHL affiliate, he currently has 18 points in 18 games. So, I mean, he went into the draft being that defensive-minded guy, but he's finding a way to score right now with 14 assists in those 18 games. So, with all that ability, the fact that he's kind of developing more of a two-way ability that he didn't really have at this time last year, it's showing that this is a guy that could absolutely take Czechia by storm and definitely make them a team that has some upset potential in their back pocket.
Yeah, a lot of talent on the forward core, the defense core, like you mentioned as well. The goaltending one's really interesting. Just because it's a short tournament, you rarely see guys who are trying to go with the hot hand in a group where it's like you could be done in 7 days. You could be going home, right? So it's gonna be an interesting strategy. I don't remember the last time I've seen something like that, but again, fortune favors the bold, right? And we'll have to see if that pays off for them. But I wanted to see and dive a little bit deeper into the expectations that lie with Czechia. Now, you mentioned that they could be probably the third best team in that group. Donald, do you share those thoughts? Do you share those recollections? And where do you think the expectations do lie for a team like Czechia with a lot of talent, a lot of skill, and a little bit of a track record too? They've gotten it done in the past. They're never really a team that gets absolutely slammed. They can put up a fight many times, and you've seen a couple upsets here and there. So what are you expecting from these guys?
Yeah, no, I feel like what Jared said is 100% correct. When you're in this group with Austria and Germany. Obviously, Sweden and Canada, you're not touching, but it's kind of weird. You have these two teams, Sweden and Canada. They're top two. That's tier A. Tier C, you have your Austria and oh my goodness, right out my head, Germany, and then Czechia right in the middle. So that's kind of how they've always been. They've never been. I don't think you could really group them in that elite of elite with the Canadas, the Swedens, but they've never been a bottom dweller. This is a team that can steal some points. They're loaded with NHL prospects. Like, I couldn't believe it when I saw it. They have a ton of talent, and in terms of expectations, knockout rounds a given. They should not be coming last in this group. If they come third, that means they're playing the second place in Group B, which is likely going to play Finland. And I'm not going to spoil too much in the Finland video, but Finland isn't as strong as they usually are. Now, granted, it's still Finland, but they could steal a game. And judging by the NHL talent, who knows if, Czechia ends up in a medal round.
Absolutely. Is there any players that maybe you want to pin a focus on for Czechia going in? Maybe that Jared didn't mention as well.
Yeah, I can absolutely do that. Another defenseman, probably going to be your XD partner, Stanislav Svozil. He was on the team last year. The WHL right now, he has 37 points in 28 games as a defenseman, plus 12. Mind you, if I were playing on the Regina Pats right now, I would probably have that many points as well. But yeah, he's a phenomenal defenseman. Really, really, really good skater. He's just a textbook defenseman. Again, with the Blue Jackets as well. Go figure. Another guy that I should probably point out is this guy named Edward Sale. He is supposed to go in like the mid first round this year. 6'1", but 170 pounds. He's a tall, lanky kid. Currently playing in the top flight of Czechia, which is no slouch at that age. Czechia is a competitive country. I'm actually doing like a little bit of research in the leagues in Europe. Czechia is up there with one of the best, and he may not be playing well. 6 points in 26 games is, nothing crazy, but for, a kid that is clearly not in a man's body, he's got some skill, and I'd be curious to see how he plays in the top 6 of Czechia.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, again, like we've mentioned so many times on this episode, so much potential, so much upside. And I really like what you said about the difference between the teams, where there's the top teams, the bottom teams. Czechia is always in the middle, and sort of served them well. And it just kind of shows that they haven't really stopped or started to decline. They're always just staying where they have to be, ahead of the, I guess you want to say competition, but always below that upper tier and upper echelon competition. So they're in a good spot. I want to hear your guys' predictions as well, just to see if you could solidify that spot. Jared, I'll go with you. Where do you got these guys finishing by the end of it? Is it going to be on the podium? Is it going to be slightly off it? Where do you got these guys finishing?
I have them being slightly off the podium. I don't think they're going to medal in terms of my predictions, but in general, I see them finishing as the 5th best team overall in this tournament. I personally don't think they're touching Canada, the US, Finland, or Sweden, but I think they're right there beyond those top teams. And based on the talent they have, I don't think it's impossible that they can maybe upset one of these teams when it comes to those playoff rounds and potentially even get themselves into a greater position in this tournament. But I think I'm penciling them in, probably getting eliminated right before the medal rounds and ultimately finishing as the 5th best team in the tournament.
Ramo, what about you?
5th. We talk about, your middle.
Yeah.
5 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. And if all things goes well for them and it goes as planned, as it's done, as history has tended to show, that would be kind of the result that they've been finishing with for quite some time. But yeah, that does it here for this episode of the Leafs Line Podcast. That's Czechia for you in a nutshell. A team that has a lot of potential, a lot of skill, a lot of options to go to, and they're always in the middle. They can finish just about wherever they like in that little range between 5 to 7. And if it's anything lower, it's a bit of a disappointment. If it's anything higher, you are jumping over the moon. But again, that does it for us here on the Leafs Line Podcast. I'm Mary Russo, Jared Rotenberg, and Don Romoli signing off to you from the Leafs Line Podcast. Again, stick around, tune in, look at some of our episodes. Really good stuff. And Dynasty Sports Network as well. As you can see on your screen, type into your web browser. So many good stuff. You can see us on socials as well, which you can find on the website in that regard. But thank you guys for tuning in. This is Czechia. We're making our way to Germany in just a little bit, so take care. Sit tight. We got some more World Juniors coming your way.